welcome to another exciting episode of Exceptional Living with Dr. April Ripley. I'm your host, and I am so excited because every time our program airs, our purpose is to inform, to inspire, and to ignite the greatness that lives in you. So, what do? We bring to you life changing concepts, strategic insights, intentional tactics, and proven tools for local and global thought leaders, innovators, creatives, and change agents that will equip and empower you with credible influence, distinguishable competency, and indelible impact. In a world where one is conditioned to fit in, know that you, yes, you, were created to stand out and to be exceptional. So, welcome. My very special guest comes to us all the way from the United Kingdom. Kule David Joe Banwo is solely committed to representing God's kingdom and the reality of Christ's life in the corporate world and in society. He works as a personal development coach in corporate and charitable establishments while helping businesses to transform decision support processes and systems. He creates value to clients across multiple business sectors, business and information technology. He helps to create business and information strategy and improve people development, corporate processes, and systems integration. He holds degrees in computer science and a master's in business administration. He is a certified John C. Maxwell coach, speaker, trainer, and a consummate investor in professional career and youth development. So, exceptional living, please welcome my very special guest, David Joe Banwo.
Hi, Dr. April.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome to the show. Today we are so honored to have you on. And this show is all about how to live an exceptional life, a life that stands out, that is unique by design. And certainly the work that you've done in the UK and globally is a testament to that. So, David, share with us, how would you define exceptional living?
Well, hi, Dr. April. Thanks for inviting me to this broadcast. First, I'd like to just appreciate your great work and to say thank you for having me on your broadcast. I'll keep it as crisp as possible. So, first, I'd like to briefly touch on what I think exceptional living isn't about. So, to my mind, it's not an imitation of the personality of another person, whether that individual is prominent or otherwise. Uh, it's okay to learn from other people as long as the learning is about values and virtues, not just imitating other people's styles. Another point to quickly make is that it's not seeking popularity and fame. Those may happen to come along with time, but that's not the objective of being an exceptional individual. Another quick point is that exceptional living is not just wanting to be different for its own sake. So, what then is exceptional living as I see it? I like to suggest that it's a recognition of your unique design and your value, and a commitment to manifesting or presenting your true self without reservation. And that is my very my view on exceptional living. Now, before I kind of hold my thought, there's a certain contradiction that we all tend to deal with. uh, on one hand, we would like to be normal, but at the same time would like to be special at the same time. There's also something that kind of nudges us to conform to our society, i.e., we don't want to look like the odd one out. But at the same time, there's a recognition that there is something unique about us just about the same time. But I'd like to offer here a word of comfort that the desire to be normal or to conform, to not look like the odd one out, I think that stems out of our desire to be relatable, because We are created for relationships. However, there's also the fact that we are unique by design. Our creators, our creator, should say, created us to be unique. There is a divine deposit in each of us. So it's perfectly okay to want to step out of the crowd. So there's that contradiction, and in my view, that's a way to resolve it.
I like what you said, that there's something really kind of innate in us, right, to belong, but then also to stand out, and
Yes.
that it's okay to stand out in the crowd. And certainly in your work in executive coaching and leadership development, you have dealt with many, many clients. Um, what are some of the things that you've learned or that you share with your clients on how to, get their lives on track or discover who they are themselves as individuals, their identity?
Okay. So most of my work tends to be within the corporate environment. So the initial engagement may be about solving some business problem, and then as part of that, there's always that element of engaging with people, and it tends to have some bit of coaching in it, or some uh, personal development, or sometimes that's the engagement in its own right. But one thing I'm finding out by the day and each time as I engage with people is that everyone is human. And so there's this commonality of experience that we all share. And because we're all human, then you can relate to the fact that everyone wishes to be successful. And that implies that there is a problem to solve. Everyone has some business or personal problem that they wish to solve, and they're constantly looking for whoever can help them solve it the most effectively. So the key thing from my point of view is to cultivate the relationships and to cultivate that environment that allows value to be exchanged in an effective way, so that you've not only solved the problem, but you've also hopefully have an interaction that allows values to be changed, to be exchanged, and for people to uh, look at the way they've approached things and be open to wanting to change them. I think when that happens, then there's a room for greater value to be created. Otherwise, you can solve a problem or attempt to solve it, but you would only be touching the symptoms, and you inadvertently uh, create some other problems in doing so. That would be a way I would approach that.
You're so right. So I thought of two things, right? So, how we met there in Bahamas, in Freeport, Bahamas specifically, with my mentor, the late Dr. Miles Monroe. And, he would tell us often that you are a solution to a problem in your generation. Um,
Absolutely.
my parents often tell me that, God has put something in you that he felt the world could not do without. And so when you look at really this purpose for your creation, your identity being with God, who is above just this tangible, natural realm that we live our lives in every day. That gives us a confidence, right? Our shoulders kind of lift back and say, you know, I am significant. As you said, David Jill, I have purpose and I have value. And there's
Yes.
something in me that is the answer to a problem. And when I discover that gift, when I
Yes.
discover that talent and I hone a skill that's
Yes.
connected to that,
Yes.
I am then able to change the circumstance where I may find myself in.
That's right.
And I know in personal coaching as well, you and I have both, we discover that we work on processes and systems, but they're connected to people. you know,
Absolutely.
the people develop them, the people, implement them. And we look at that even when we're, creating policies, who are all the stakeholders. There's a lot of aspects, but it all goes back to, as you said,
To
the
people.
human individual,
Yeah,
the people,
absolutely.
um, the most important capital, right?
Yes,
The most
yes.
expensive capital, but
Indeed.
that's it. I mean, we're utilizing this platform, our laptops. All this began in the mind of a person,
Yes.
and then they gathered other resources, natural or some that again they created, 5 different capitals, but then they were able to form something that could answer
Yeah,
the problem or the lack or the need. But it still starts with a person. Um,
absolutely.
and so from your experience, what are some of the things that you found, maybe two or three you would share with us, that you see kind of over and over in your work, that have to deal with people, have to deal with people?
Yes. That's a great question, and thanks for asking. The one thing I found out, I'll tell you this. When I first started out in my career, I used to just think that it was all about me just going there, show how much I knew, and then just look at systems, look at processes, just change them and then move on. But I found out that I was limited in my experience. I was definitely solving some problems but creating some other ones. It may mean that there was no repeat business, or somehow the relationship wouldn't go on to what it could become. But as I continue to develop and to learn, and I see you mentioned a great point there, through the impact of great mentors like the late Dr. Miles Monroe, one thing I started to see was that it's fundamentally about people. Everything we do is for people, is with people. We may use different tools, we may use different processes and techniques, but at the end of the day, we're solving problems for people. Now, because it's for people, I found out that it was not just enough for me to be, let me use this phrase, fact finding. It was also important to me for me to be feeling finding, meaning that there is something in the life of each person that is connected directly or indirectly to the problem they are looking to solve. For someone, it may be that their entire livelihood depends on that solution going right. Someone may have some other issues at stake as regards the particular uh, business engagement that brought us together. So it's really looking to understand people and to to treat them first and foremost as humans. This sounds so trivial, but you'll be surprised that in most engagements, most people don't tend to see the human sitting on the other side of the table. So being particular to connect with people as humans, to understand their needs, to understand and treat them as people of value, regardless of where they are in their lives, is essential. Regardless of the differences, you say most of the things that tend to stand between us and other people are, if you like, they're like surface layer issues. If you strip those back, you're really now face to face with the individual behind all of those issues. And that's where meaningful connections can happen. That's where true value exchange can happen. That's where we then have the opportunity to transform lives, if I can use that phrase. That sounds a big phrase, but it's exactly what it is. When you when you can strip all of those distractions back, if you like, then you can connect with the real individual, and you find out that this individual has real needs, has families, has uh, some some desire to achieve some things, whether in their career or personal life or other areas, and you find out that they also have real fears, things that bother them, things that keep them awake. Now, we need to be able to get to that layer, that meaningful connection with people, because that's when we can truly exchange values. It's easy. You can bring in any consultant anywhere to solve the technical problem. That's easy. But it's not everyone that gets to that level where you connect with people, where they feel uh, assured or not threatened to open up and let you in into other aspects of their lives. And I think that's where real value is created.
You're so right, David Joe. It is at times getting to those what we call crucial conversations, right? To
Yes.
delve deeper than just the problem, like you said. That's what we see on the surface, but
Yes.
there's something deeper. And to reduce everyone to a human, and at first you hear that and go, "Reduce me to a human." I am a human, right? Well, what does that mean? And I think from what you said, it is no matter the title or position, whether it's socioeconomically, whether it's in a corporation, an initiative or what have you, you're the visionary. It is recognizing that every person has this wanting. We look at Maslow's needs, um,
Yes.
but also just to be acknowledged,
That's
um,
right.
to be viewed as significant and how they value, but also in a dignity. Um,
Absolutely.
to be getting to belong is what every human desires. And so, as you said, if you go past just the systems and the processes to talk to the persons, and also in project management, sometimes you have to go into other departments, right? Other um, subject matter experts, on projects. Over this past couple of years, we've had to be more agile,
Yeah.
more flexible, pivoting from different in a lot of different ways. Every industry really had to pivot in some way.
That's
And
right.
sometimes it took coming out of what you know and what was familiar to say, okay, you know more about technology, let's work together. And someone else saying, okay, how do I approach this from a business perspective, or how do I approach this financially or education? And you saw more teams having to work together. You saw more diversity.
Hmm.
These departments that were created in corporate spaces to address social issues,
Yeah.
diversity, equity, and inclusion, the DEIs. So our world is ever changing.
It is changing.
In the work that I do, I talk a lot about intercultural awareness and strategy, and understanding that culture is holistic,
Mm.
that what happens, and this is with people, culture is people, their ideologies, their language, their dress, everything that's about the food, the customs, that is what's at the core, what's at the center.
Yeah.
And so, in whatever we do, as you said, whether it's coaching or business practices, processes, systems, we have to keep the person at
Yeah.
the center.
Yeah.
But what's also enlightening, David Joe, is that it depends on which person you put at the center, is where your perspective and your processes, um, your models go for what process you will incorporate. So let
That's
me
right.
say that again.
That's right.
Depending on the person that you put at the center, determines the processes and the model that you create, right?
Yeah.
The model and the process. So if I put the child at the center, it's different than if I put the mother, if I
That's
put the
right.
father, right?
Yeah.
And so I know in your work you've had to work through some of that as well.
Yeah.
Um, but talk to us a little bit. We talked about pivoting over the past couple of years, about what happens when we have setbacks, when we go into this VUCA environment, right? Volatile,
Mhm.
uncertain,
Mm.
changing, kind of abstract. What can one do to find this balance to manage it all?
Yes.
What can we do? Or can we manage it all? Talk to us.
Great question. If I have time, I would make a quick point on the earlier response, but let me go straight into this. Yes, indeed, disappointments, setbacks are all parts of our lives. Um, Sometimes and oftentimes we don't invite them. I don't know of anyone who says, "Today I'm looking for a disappointment." That's not what we do. We just literally go about our day, and these things happen, and we're forced to respond to them. But that's the key word there, and that's what I'm going to say to start with. That how we respond matters.
Mhm.
That connects to attitude, but If I say attitude, it sounds too sort of broad. It's like a broad brush that just kind of covers a lot of things. But fundamentally, how we respond to issues when they happen matters. That can either make them worse or set us on a course to correct them and improve the situation. What I found out personally is that most things work better in my interest if my response is measured, if it's well thought through. I may not be able to control everything, but oftentimes we can choose our responses. So I would say that in line with that, one thing that I always recommend is to never downplay the disappointment or the issue. So acknowledge it. This is what it is. And sometimes you say how we define a problem also matters. Because in acknowledging something, you can totally misinterpret it. So I always say to bring the right people around the table to properly define what the setback is. I may be responding with a bit of emotion that's making me to compound what it is. I may not be saying it properly as I should, but with the benefit of other pairs of eyes, perspectives, we can properly define it for what it is. So acknowledging it is key. Then I would suggest a time of reflection to look inwards. And a few questions may come to mind, which is what is the root cause of this? Or what are the root causes? There may be many. I may also want to ask, what are the lessons that this situation is presenting us with? I think that oftentimes we learn more when disappointments occur, when setbacks occur, than when things are going great. Because when things are going great, you just have momentum and you're just going on a roll. But when things happen otherwise, I think they present us certain lessons that we wouldn't have learned otherwise. Another question for me would be, what do I need to know? What don't I know? Or what do I need to do? In an area of my practice, we call that um, uh, problem finding. You want to really understand the problem because sometimes you think a problem is not always what it looks like. So you want to really understand the problem. What exactly is the issue here? Now, and then that may lead to a few other things, which is what do I need to change? Is it processes? Is it a personal issue? Is it a strategy? Or what is it? What do I need to stop doing? Or what do I need to delegate? In other words, is it time to change our priorities? And I wouldn't say that the time may also have come to review our approaches and relationships, which is, do we need to bring other people on board? Or are we in fact not treating people right? Is that how this whole thing has come about? All of these are important. But one element that I don't ever want to lose sight of is to believe that everything will be all right if we do the right thing. And I want to kind of wrap that under a covering and an adequate and appropriate one at that, which is to trust God. I'm finding out that business is not just business. God is interested in every aspect of my life and everything that I do. So He is the reason why those things are done in the first place. So it needs to be first and center. First, not because there's a second or third thing. First means is the chief and it's all about it. Everything revolves around him and it needs to be so.
Absolutely, David. And actually, people often think that the Bible is this religious book, right, of scriptures and what thou shalt do and thou shalt not do. It's only for persons who have a certain faith. But it is the greatest success book that I've ever read. And when you look at, and you and I both, when you look at other leadership books and training about people and mindset, as you talked about, attitude affecting your altitude. All of it goes back to principles that are found in scripture. There are
Absolutely.
literally situations that talk about people having the right people around you in order to accomplish relationships. Covenants is what is kind of that old English word that we find covenants, and that's what it was. It was
Yeah.
strategic partnerships, alliances, and it's sometimes collaborations together by groups of people or persons to in order to accomplish a common goal or common ground.
Yeah.
And so, yes, God is first, meaning He is preeminent because His wisdom transcends. It is above mere human wisdom. And when you talked about acknowledging a setback, because sometimes we don't. We just want, we look at everything that's on social media. We want to see, the finished product, the edited movie, what we call our life's highlight reel. And sometimes we forget that there are those bloopers and those blunders, right? Those retakes over and over in our lives. And interestingly enough, life gives us the test first and
Yes.
the experience after. So
That's
we
right.
actually kind of live our lives moving backwards, which I think, he's like the beginning and the end, he's Alpha and Omega. Like God already sees when He has purpose for our lives, He sees the end, and then we take this process of catching up to that end.
Yeah.
But it does take faith. We don't always see the way out, but we do have some principles, as you were sharing, that can help us. You said acknowledge a problem. Look at the people who are around the table. Does everyone have, and we know this from the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by Dr. Maxwell, right? The law of association. Who do you have at your table? Who's sitting around you? Do they all have the same perspectives that you have?
That's
Do you
right.
need someone with a different perspective? You said that. If you go in, yes, we're in this silo, as we talk about it in the business space, but silos can be positive, but they can also be negative, and it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And then lastly, I love that you talked about taking some time for reflection and review. I think sometimes we don't. We just kind of pick ourselves off. I remember, and you probably do with your kids, right? When they were learning to ride a bike, what happens when they fall, right? They quickly get up, dust themselves off, get back on the bike, like nobody will know that I fell. Nobody will know, as if it erases the fact that they're learning this. And so what you shared is so important because we do need to take the time to say, what happened?
Mm.
We call it debriefings when we do special events, but to really look at our lives and say, where am I? Right?
Yeah.
Where is it that I want to go?
Yeah.
And what can I learn,
Yeah.
from that? So,
Just
yeah.
as you are saying that, there's something that you tend to say. I think it's probably in US as well, but it
Mhm.
certainly is around the UK. If you get lost anywhere in the UK, just look for any major. Uh, there's these bills that are around the city, and if you look at some of them, we tell you you are here. So there's this something that almost like a locator,
Yes,
a
yes.
place that it says you are here. Now, if you know where you are, you can always plot where you're coming from and where you're going. But at least you should know where you are, and that's important. So,
Yeah.
and oftentimes we don't fully appreciate where we currently are in the journey.
Mhm.
Knowing that is crucial to where we're coming from and where we're heading.
Yeah. And you remember another mentor too, Pastor Richard Pinder. He'd always talk about the process, right?
Yes.
People want to skip over that, but the process, the path to the journey to the destination is
Yes.
often more valuable than
Yes.
when we get to the destination, right? We're like, we want this prize, but it's the work that we put in, the discipline that we learn, the passion, the focus, the
Yes.
vision. All these
Yes.
are part of the process of our journey. Um, David Joe, looking back over your life, what would the man that you are today say to the boy that you were?
Another very great question. Where do I start from? Well, I mean, if I just reflecting over that question, a few things do come to mind. Um, Some of them, there are things that stem out of pain, some of them out of other things that were pleasurable, went well, and you want to see those repeated. But one thing I would say is uh, the mind of a child is such an asset. Well, the minds of adults are great too, but the mind of a child needs uh, to be guarded. And that's why I think the scriptures also encourage us to keep our minds diligently. But I think more so for the younger minds. So I would want to invest much more so on anything and everything that helps me to keep my mind guarded diligently. The next one that goes along with that would be having the right relationships, because they literally do alter the course of our lives. I'm blessed in that I think growing up, I had a lot of good people around me. Most of my friends were far older than me, and I was always seeing something way ahead than people of my age. But another thing that I would not want to negotiate for anything is the opportunity for a young mind to know Christ. Oh, it makes all the difference. When that happens, more often than not, you can avoid mistakes that you needn't make in the first instance, which means you're going to have less bad memories. I would always encourage that to a child, to a younger mind. And I would say then that it's important in knowing God to also know your purpose and your priorities. Because that's one thing that I believe, once we know God, the next thing is, why did He bring us here? What is our purpose and what are priorities that should be in keeping with that purpose? Um, I would encourage deliberate preparation, because life is certainly not an accident. I tell you what, the things that we get right in our youth, they absolutely influence our adult lives. You can literally say it's almost like you plug in, plug and play, input, output straight away.
Mm.
So, and I would say that I'll tell you a quick story. I once wrote an essay when I was about 14 or thereabout, and I came first in my whole state. And then an uncle of mine, he made a statement which stayed with me. He said, there are some people who make the world better than they met it. I don't know what was going through his mind, but that thing stayed with me. So I would say to be intentional about making people and places better than we met them. That is key. That is, you're thinking as an agent of change. I can make a difference. I can make things happen. And I did that in my environment that time. I was 15 or there or 16, and I decided to work with the youth in my community. I was engaging with them over a period of time, and it was such a rewarding time that I wouldn't trade for anything else. So that is crucial to me, and I think uh, I would encourage as many younger minds, certainly a younger version of myself, to do that again and again.
Wow, I love it. The mind of a child is an asset.
Such a
And
great one.
certainly, right? That it's open to new ideas and ways of thinking. They believe they can be anything, right? Um, and there's a faith. Scripture talks about when Jesus was all these children were around him and they were trying to like move the kids out. He's like, no, 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 no. Let the children come to me.
Yes.
Having this childlike faith. And so again, another principle of belief, right? A child just believes that they can do it. And so when you speak that to a child, and again, having that relationship with Christ, but something else that you shared too in your story, David Joe, is that you can do something on your level, right? We often think, well, if I had this, and if I lived here, and if I look like this person, then I can do something.
Yes.
But that's not how the walk or how we were created.
Yeah.
We were created by God that everyone brings something, right?
Yes.
And if we know about the mango tree, right? Every fruit has a seed. And every
Yes.
seed is more mango trees,
Yes.
orchards, more and more. And so there's
Yes.
always something to give. And it reminds me also of the story of a young man. who played sports. And, he's like, oh, well, I'm not a professional yet. What can I do? And then he realized, well, I can go to younger kids and teach them what I know. So you're
Yes.
always able to teach what you know, um, regardless of what level that you're at. And so even if
Absolutely.
what we do, I do like tutoring and reading to elementary school. You're thinking, what are you reading to them? Because everyone can do something.
Yeah.
And I love that your uncle shared with you to make the world better than you met it. The people, the places, the resources, the processes, the systems. That's so powerful. Make the world
Yeah.
better than you met it.
Yes.
Wow, David Jones.
If I
Thank
may chip this in, April,
Yes.
I would say we should never overlook a child.
Mm,
Children never forget. Oh, we've all been children before. We never forget people who paid attention to us, who gave us the time, who shared some moment with us. I certainly haven't forgotten everyone who gave me some time. Just. I remember Dr. Mice stood with me somewhere there in Nassau, and he put his hand right on my forehead and he said, "We're going to walk on your mind." I still remember the way he circled his hand. I would never forget that.
yeah. Yeah. And it's those moments. Again, it's, people, the saying says that people may forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel.
Yes.
And I think that's also in the mind of a child. We don't forget, right? Because we say, I know I felt happy here, or I felt joy, I felt peace, I felt comfort.
Yes.
So, David Joe, I just want to say thank you for being our guest today on Exceptional Living. What you shared with us has truly been key, intentional life strategies for us to make a difference, not only in the world around us, but the world that resides within us. And so I say thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for 10 Kingdom Leaders. That's here now. If people want to find you, it's 10 Kingdom Leaders, which is on Facebook. But great things that are coming out of the United Kingdom. Thank you for your work. Thank you for choosing to intentionally better the world that you met. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ripley. You've been a great friend of mine since we met. You've always modeled this excellence and this compassion, this intentionality. And I really respect you greatly for that. So thank you for all that you do and also for setting this platform up. Exceptional Living with Dr. April Ripley is highly recommended. If you're missing our videos, make sure you get onto our channels and view them, watch them over and over again. Thank you for what you do, and wish you absolutely greater success as you continue to thrive and make a difference in your world.
Thank you. Thank you, David Joe, and to you and your family as well and your work. Thank you
Right.
so much.
Thank you very much, April. Thank you.